Hi guys, Ryu here from Blender Bros, and in this video we're gonna talk about how you can easily start with HardOps and Boxcutter add-ons. Let's go. So the first question usually I hear is like, should I get HardOps or should I get Boxcutter? Well, you should get the bundle because technically it's one add-on. It just comes with two files, okay? So think about it as one add-on. Don't think about it as Boxcutter and HardOps. You really want them both because it just makes sense, okay? They work so well together and there's so many intertwined tools. You don't want to separate them. Now, there's a link in the video description, so if you don't have them, just go ahead and buy them. And also, we have a fantastic course that will help you to go a bit deeper into the add-on workflow. It's called Sci-Fi Terminal Design in Blender, and we use HardOps, Boxcutter, and Machine Tools over there. It's free, go ahead and grab it. Like I said, link in the video description. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the very basics of HardOps and Boxcutter, and we're going to talk about installation first. So when you download the zip files from Blender Market or Gumroad, wherever you bought them from, you install these add-ons as usually you will install any other add-ons. So go to preferences and install from a zip file. Now I would suggest you install HardOps first and Boxcutter second, and the reason for that is because when you install them in that order, you will have HardOps here and Boxcutter on the bottom. So when you press Alt W to enter the Boxcutter or HardOps mode, because you can press Alt W to switch between them, you're going to fire up Boxcutter first, which is important because that's usually what we're going to be using, right? So when you have a cube with Shift A, let's add some cavity as well. Alt W is HardOps and cavity. And when I'm going to enter Boxcutter mode, I want to start cutting with a Boxcutter, but then when you press Q, you can enter HardOps menu regardless that you're in the Boxcutter mode, okay? So this is really cool and very fast way of working, because when HardOps is in the bottom, you need to actually press it twice to get to Boxcutter, okay? Cool, so that's one. Now let's talk about versions. If you want to check whether you are up to date, what you want to do is go here to this top HardOps menu, and you want to click on that HardOps version, and it will tell you here in the bottom that you're in the current version, okay? So if you're not, you can go ahead and, load it up. Another really useful menu here is this link menu. Many people don't know about it, and you have very, very useful links here, including, a Discord channel for HardOps, which is really useful, and also you got access to documentation and other resources, including Josh's and my YouTube channel. So, this is a fantastic source of information and help for HardOps and Boxcutter. You can also join our Discord, our Blender Bros Discord. We have like 1.7k members over there. Go ahead and join it. The link is in the video description, and you can ask questions over there as well. So if you need help, there's plenty of places to get help, all right? So the way I set up this menu here, I click on the star, and usually when you open HardOps, you're not gonna have these options here enabled. So what you want to do is you want to enable Auto T panel and Auto N panel. That is really cool because when you work, let's say, on some object and you have T and N panel kind of open, when you start beveling something, let's say you're gonna go to Q and bevel, I want you to see what's gonna happen to these menus, okay? See, they slide away, and they slide away because when you press H, you're gonna get the H menu helper for whichever operation you perform, right? So in this case, we're working with bevel, so we can actually, for example, change profiles 1, 2, 3, etc. So you can do really a lot of stuff with this H menu. And when the end panel is in, it's kind of rolled out, you can't really see that. Everything is very cramped, so that doesn't look good. Now, when you click and confirm that, the H menu is gonna disappear and your panel is gonna be rolled back in. That is really cool. Normally, I don't really work with T or N panel because I don't need them, but if you're starting with Blender, you may need them, okay? So that's a really cool option. Second option here, that's really important. And another example, how closely these add-ons are related, that you can enable Boxcutter notifications. So when you actually work with a Boxcutter, let me just enable the T panel. When you work with Boxcutter, right, and you can see on the bottom here, you're gonna have these notifications. So for example, when I'm gonna go to B to bevel, you actually can see, for example, segment number, etc., right? So this is really, really, important because you can see what's actually happening to your mesh. You can have arrays, etc. So all the information is going to be here in the bottom, right? So you want to have that enabled because it's useful. Now the Q menu sequential is good for small screens, because if I turn it off and press Q and go to a menu, it's going to be a, you know, long ass menu, right? But when you want to compact that, you can turn that on, and when you're going to go here, you see you're going to get this menu kind of sort of cascading to the right. So when you have a smaller screen, or smaller resolution of a screen, and everything, you know, appears bigger, the text is bigger, this is actually quite handy because the menu can't just disappear below your screen, so you need to reopen it somewhere higher. So that's really convenient for smaller screens. And I have it open, I have it turned on because, you know, I'm recording videos, so it's easier for folks to see. And this one is also cool because it will allow you to display the same color of material more or less in a viewport that's actually in a render display. Okay, so if I turn it on and I'm going to go Alt M and add the material, this color is going to be very similar to what I'm going to be getting under you know, render situation. Okay, so you know, it's kind of similar. It's a bit darker, but you get the point. Otherwise, if you turn it off, you're gonna get a bit of a parrot effect, okay, because you know, you're gonna have random colors here assigned. Blender crush, so let's do it again. You're gonna have random colors assigned to this cube in viewport. So let me just do it again, and Alt M here, and I see that the color is here. It's a bit different than it's gonna be here under viewport. Okay, so this is what this menu is for. Okay, this is what I usually have enabled here under these options, and that's it, guys. Okay, when it comes to Boxcutter, you want to enter Boxcutter mode. So press Alt W, go here, and the only settings I change is I enable this right mouse button to cancel Angon. That is really cool because you know, I like working quickly. So if I'm gonna go to top view here, and let's say I wanted to start cutting this cube with Angon, so I'm gonna press D with Boxcutter and go into Angon cut, and then I'm gonna press Shift V and enable this view align in ortho, which means when I'm gonna be in orthographic view, my cut's gonna be aligned to view, not to a face or angle. Okay, so now when I'm gonna start drawing an Angon, right, and I want to redraw it really quickly, all I need to do is press the right mouse button to cancel it. If you have this disabled, you will have a lot of points, because every time you click and you right click now, you will be going backwards through all these points you created. That annoys the shit out of me. You know, you can press escape to cancel it as well, but you know, I just prefer right mouse button to cancel. So for me, this is a nice option, and I have it on. And that's it in terms of settings, guys. You don't need anything else. Now, let's talk about, you know, the most important functions you're gonna be using with HardOPs and Boxcutter, because, you know, these add-ons are quite extensive, and you know, they're quite deep, and there's a lot of functions, options, and tools, and you may get really easily confused. Now, the very basics, guys. Okay, you're gonna be using Q menu from HardOPs. Okay, and this is the most essential menu you're gonna be using. There are many menus in HardOPs. In fact, I don't really use all of them, but there's quite a lot of them. There's also another menu that you're gonna be using, and that's Control tilde. These two menus are like, you know, almost 100% of the menus I'm using from HardOPs, because I don't really need anything else. But here Q, and the first thing you're gonna be doing is bevel. So you click on the bevel, and you know, you bevel your shape. You can open this H menu, and for example, press Z to preview the wireframe. This is really cool when you are creating bevels on surfaces that may overshoot. So the bevel is going to overshoot on itself, and you can see clearly where the wireframe is. Press Z again. You can very easily create different profiles of bevels. So press 1 and scroll down to create a chamfer. You can press 2 to create bevels on corners. So press 3 to create kind of like a supporting bevel for your sub D. So if you click that and press Ctrl 3 to use sub D, on that model, you see that it will not collapse on itself. You know, if you had a regular cube without these bevels and you press Ctrl 3, you know, this will happen, right? So you can very easily create bevels around your shape, kind of parameter for the sub D to work. Another very useful trick here would be, after you add bevel, especially when you have some cuts on the mesh, right? you want to add weighted normals. So you press Q and Alt click on sharpen, which will add weighted normal modifier. So when you go to Control tilde menu, you will see here that you're gonna have these two modifiers running. Now, the cool thing about HardOps and Boxcutter is that, you know, especially HardOps, it will automatically sort all your modifiers. So you don't have to worry about it like, you know, in vanilla Blender. When you create, for example, a boolean here, so go to D menu, click on this square and just click and drag this shape, release your mouse, then pull your mouse down and click. This is how you create a cut with a box cutter. And here you can clearly see when I press Control tilde again that the boolean was actually placed above the bevel and above weighted normals, whereas in vanilla Blender you would have it here on the bottom. So you would need to kind of drag it, you know, you would need to drag it down from underneath the weighted normals above the bevel manually every single fucking time, which is annoying. So now here, when you create a boolean, the boolean automatically is going to disappear unless you're going to press shift. So let me just go back here on this, and when I'm going to draw this cutter again here, so click, drag, release your mouse, pull it down, and shift click, then your cutter is going to stay here live, okay? And every time you want to see some kind of options that you can perform in addition to the regular operations listed on the menu, just hover over and you will see a tooltip that's going to tell you what you can do. So for example, if you press Control Shift, you're going to add a new bevel at 60 degrees, right? And when you press Control, you're going to add new bevel at 30 degrees. So you could add and stack, for example, multiple bevels on the mesh. There are other ways of doing it, but let's not overcomplicate things in here. So why would you want to bring it to life? Well, you know, you want to bring it to life because maybe you want to, you know, add additional cuts like this, okay? Or for example, like this. Or maybe you want to mirror this cutter across the shape. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's kind of misaligned here and you want to mirror it. So click on the shape, Alt X, that's a mirror from HardOps, and mirror, right? So you can do a lot of stuff with this cutter. It's really cool. And then Shift 2 to remove it. Now, Boxcutter will automatically create a collection for cutters called cutters. So the moment you start cutting something in Blender, right? Let me just reset that here for you, okay? So Shift A, add a cube, and now watch. If I'm going to add a bevel here very quickly and Alt click on sharpen to create weighted normals, when I'm going to start drawing a cutter, you will see that this shape is going to get cut. So you're going to see that this menu is going to be created. So click and drag and you see that the cutters collection was created. And when I'm going to click here, this cutter is going to disappear. It's going to be added here. So when I press Shift 2, you know, I can kind of recover it by pressing Alt H, okay? So, you know, Shift 2 to hide it or unhide it, right? Another way of finding cutters on your mesh when you have more than one cutter, right, will be through Scroll. So you click on the mesh and then you press Q and you click on Scroll and then you can scroll through the cutters, okay? That's why I'm saying that, you know, Boxcutter and HardOps, they work so well together. You really can't separate these two add-ons. It's just unreasonable to do that. All right, cool. So Shift 2 to hide that. So these would be the basic operations with HardOps. And now Boxcutter has a few tricks here. If you press D menu, you can change between, you know, a circle draw, square draw, or angle draw. You can also enable lasso draw, which are used very rarely. And you also have custom shape here, okay? So when you click on the angle, you can enable lasso draw here. And you can have custom shape here as well. You can create custom cutters. You can even borrow shapes to create custom cutters, okay? So for instance, if I'm gonna create a cube, right? And move it somewhere here, and I'm gonna start cutting it. So let's just go to square, and I'm gonna start cutting it here, right? Like that. Then what I can do is I can draw a shape here, drag it all the way down, press Y to extract this cutter, click, and then this is going to become a custom cutter, and automatically you're going to have a custom cutter enabled. So when you start now cutting this shape here, you will be using this extracted cutter from this shape here, right? So there you go, that's how you create custom cutters. but that's a bit more advanced. Let's talk about, basics a little bit more, yeah? So again, bevel, right? And then alt-click weighted normals, and you're done here. And then we're gonna start cutting. So let's say if you wanted to create cut in the middle of this cube, what you can do is you can enable something called dots. I have them enabled by default. So when you're in Boxcutter mode, just enable this here, this magnet. And when you hover over a mesh in perspective view and you hold control, you will see dots. These dots will appear in the middle of edges, okay, and in the center of a certain face. And you can start drawing from these dots your cutter. So if I'm going to start drawing a cutter here in the middle, let me just switch to a regular square or even to a circle. If I'm going to start drawing here, I'm going to be drawing from that center of the shape, right? So I can release now my control, and I can release my mouse and drag it down and then click, okay? And you're going to get cut in the middle of your shape. And then when you click it again, you'll see dots in different areas because they're, they're affected by the cut inside. So you can create another cut in the middle of that circle, okay? So you can keep going. And this is going to be, perfectly in the center here, okay? So that's really important. Now, this is a good example when you could actually use this Z shortcut in HardOps to preview what's happening in here. I guarantee you that this is caused by edges running either here or here, possibly in here, connecting this cut here in the middle, because every boolean needs two connections, right? So when I'm going to go here to bevel and press Z, well, there you go. See what I mean? That's how you can check what the hell is happening with your bevels. And this is a clear example of overshooting. So if I go to Control A and play Visual to Mesh, you will see that this bevel caused this problem because it simply pulled an edge through the bevel like this. So you can very clearly check what's going on with your geometry by, enabling this this option. Cool. So that's a cut in the middle. Now you can create different effects with your cutters while cutting. So let's go to a square here, and you can, start cutting this object. And when you press X, you'll enter slash mode. Okay, when you press X again, you will enter intersection mode. And when you press one more time, you will enter inset mode. When you press T, you're gonna enter solidification. T always stands for solidification in HardOps and Boxcutter. So you can create cuts like this very easily. This is extremely complicated in vanilla Blender. You need, I think, 2 modifiers and quite a few minutes to spend on this to create it. It's just it's a pain in the ass. So here, when you start drawing, automatically you go back to this cut. You can also enable knife by pressing K. And knife is something that's gonna kind of remain. So you're gonna remain in knife mode until you're gonna turn that thing off, okay? So to turn the knife mode is press D and switch here in this menu from knife. You can hover over and see what it does to cut, and you're gonna have back to cut by default. So you can press X slash intersection and inset, right? So there you go. All right. Another really cool tool in HardOps is a clean mesh tool, which I use a lot for this kind of a situation when you have a lot of edges you don't need. Go to object mode, Q, operations, clean mesh, sorted. Do you know what I mean? So there you go. You can do a few things with cutters, with Boxcutter. So for example, you can draw it and you can create a wedge by pressing W. You can hold control to create perfect wedge, which is going to be 45 degrees wedge, right? You can press W to sort of switch this wedge, and you will see which direction the wedge is going by the by this edge here being highlighted, right? You can also rotate your cutter by pressing R. Okay, you can press V to create array, and you can press one more time V to create circular array, which is interesting, right? And also you can press T to solidify it like this, right? And you can press Shift T to taper it, okay? In addition to that, you can press B to bevel it. So press B and you can bevel it. Press Q to quad bevel it. And you can also press Shift F to flip it and create kind of a bevel like this. Let me just shift click that GY and move it somewhere here so it doesn't clash with other bevels. And there you go. You can create really cool shapes very easily using these tools. Now, other tools with HardOps that I use a lot is gonna be adding material. So Alt M, and you can add material very easy to your model. When you go to this view here, you can see they're gonna be sci-fi themed materials, so kind of, you know, like black and gray. They're not gonna be colorful, and they're gonna be mostly metallic and kind of either matte or you know, really glossy. You can use one of these options here, for example, material scroll. When you press Ctrl and click, you'll be able to scroll through mattes existing in your scene. We have only one, but when you press shift click here, you will be able to actually create random mattes on the fly. You can choose one of these, and you know, when you like it, just simply apply it and you can use it, right? So there you go. So that's a trick with a matte. Then you got these standard operations, like for example, you know, array. So you can go here and click on array, and you just scroll your mouse to adjust this array. You have a lot of options here. You can look into them. This is, you know, the more advanced. You can, for example, press A to add another array, and A to add another array, and you can keep going like this, you know, for eternity. Okay, so you can add a lot of arrays to your scene. Another really cool tool that I use quite a lot is going to be extract tool. So when you grab a face, for example, like this, you can go to Q menu and shift click on curve extract. This is a tool I use quite a lot, and you can create a paneling effect here. Okay, so let's say you have a cut here like this. Okay, so let's select the cube, let's cut it like that, press K for knife, right? And when you actually go to this edit mode here, you can grab these faces, press Q, shift curve extract, and you got this paneling effect on top of your model, which is really cool. Now the awesome tool is gonna be curve extract. So when you wanna create some, you know, like cables or pipes, let's say we got this edge here, and we select this edge here, and we're gonna extract that. Gonna go here to curve extract, and you just click that, and you're gonna create a curve out of this. Press S, and you got yourself a curve really easily, you know, perfectly running around this edge here. So you can drop it down like this, shift click here, Alt X to enable mirror, click, and boom, you got to go. Now I have a video on HardOps mirrors, so you can watch it. I released it quite recently, so I'm not gonna be explaining mirror here because I already have done it in a previous video, but you know, you can create some really cool stuff with it. Okay, so there you go, that's the curve extract. Another tool I use a lot is going to be Alt EM macro. So let's say we're gonna have these two faces. I'm going to insert them, Q and Alt click on EM macro, which will allow you to inset or outset a specific geometry, which is pretty bloody cool, right? So you can create, you know, shapes like this with ease in, you know, in seconds, right? So the bevel, and there you go. By the way, when you enable bevel or sharpen your mesh or do whatever with HardOps or Boxcutter on your mesh, you will automatically shade it smooth and add auto smooth here under this menu. Okay, so it's automatic. You don't need to do it through vanilla tools, right? Now the really cool tip that I can give you is that when you have something scaled and your scale isn't uniform, so when I press N, go to item, you'll see that the scale isn't uniform. So when I'm gonna try to, for example, you know, run a bevel here on this edge, right, you will see that it's gonna be, you know, kind of wonky, right, not uniform. So when you do anything with HardOps or Boxcutter, so for example, if I'm gonna add a bevel to it, look what happens to the scale. It's gonna get automatically applied. So boom, right? So you can do that really easily. The same goes to cutting with Boxcutter. So when I'm gonna start cutting, the moment I start running a cut, the scale is gonna get applied. So really convenient because you don't have to go Control A and apply scale every single bloody time you want to do something. You can also very easily do that by, if let's say you don't want to have a bevel on this mesh, but you want to apply scale, you can go to Q menu and just run the bevel and cancel. We can do it really quickly, and this will also apply scale, right? So bevel and cancel, you see what I mean? You can do it very quickly, and that's really convenient. Okay. When it comes to HardOps, when you go to HardOps menu, so press Alt W, you will see a whole new amazing menu here on the top. I don't use it that often, but occasionally it's quite useful. You can, for example, create shapes with ease, like for instance, a screw. And these objects are smart objects. What does it mean? It means that you can hover, you can hold control, and when you hover over shape, you can actually use these dots to affect different modifiers that actually run on this mesh. Okay, so I could, for example, grab that and pull it up, and grab this dot and make it thicker, or grab this dot and scale it. You can perform a lot of things here, and it's really convenient. I use this menu occasionally. I really like the bend and curve tool, which is fantastic because bending and curving geometry in Blender is a pain in the ass, so I do it with HardOps. So RX90S, and let's scale it here. Let's apply the scale here actually, and let's just run some loops, maybe in this fashion. And then let's go to HardOps, and we can click on this modifier here, which will allow you to bend it. Now we rotated this mesh, so we need to apply rotation. So Control A, apply rotation, and now you can easily grab this dot here with Control, and you can do something like this. Okay, it's pretty cool, right? And you can solidify it if you want to. So solidify it, and you got some really cool stuff going on. Okay, cool. Another tool that's really useful in HardOps is going to be Sharpen. So when you go to Control tilde, you will see here that when you click on Sharpen, you will add crease, bevel weight, and sharp edge to your edges at the same time. So when I'm gonna click on this Q and sharpen, all these edges, okay, which are above 30 degrees, will have B weight, crease, and sharp. So for example, if I'm gonna create here a very shallow, angle like this, right, like that, and then I'm gonna apply bevel to it. Okay, so I'm gonna apply bevel to it. You will clearly see that this edge will not be caught, right? But when I switch it to B weight, it will, because my edges were marked as B weight, okay? B weight was applied to every single sharp edge. Now, when you're doing, when you're performing this kind of operations, you probably want to remove sharpen from these edges, because you can see it creates weird artifacts here. So when you select everything and right click and go to edge mode, right click and clear sharp, it's gonna look a little bit softer. Now you can use this menu to your advantage. For example, you can switch all of these and enable on the seam. Okay, so now let's say this cube was subdivided, right? So I'm going to right click and subdivide it, press Shift R to repeat that operation, draw a cut in here like this, and apply it with Control Sharpen. Control Sharpen, by the way, will apply all the booleans. So just be careful, because when you do that, you will not be applying other modifiers, and if the booleans are in weird positions, sometimes you may actually mess up your geometry. But normally I use it quite a lot to just quickly apply booleans to my mesh. You can see the boolean was applied. Now I applied seams to all these sharp edges, meaning when I'm going to hover over this mesh here and press L, it will select only this face here. So this is a really good way of sort of separating, your mesh with seams. Okay. Another useful tool in HardOps is gonna be a Smart Apply. So let's say you have a bevel here, and you have a boolean, and you have weighted normals, and you have array, and you have array. So let's go to modifiers and click on array. Okay, let's just press X to array it this way. And if you go to modifiers now, you will see that you have quite a few modifiers, right? Let's say I wanted to apply only boolean and array. The easiest way to do that would be to go to a Q, operations, and Smart Apply. This will apply all the modifiers except for the last bevel and weighted normals, which is really cool and very quick way of applying select modifiers without having to go here and do it manually. So either use Control Sharpen or use Smart Apply. These two options I use all the time. I like working semi-destructively. When I know that my shape is kind of ready to go, I just apply my modifiers and keep working. I don't really like running with 50 million modifiers on my mesh. It slows down Blender. Doesn't matter what kind of hardware you're using. Blender has limitations, so when you have more than 10 booleans or 15 booleans and a bevel, Blender's gonna throw in some tantrum and slow down. So it annoys me. I like working quickly. Okay, so there you go. Now, other tools here that you may be interested in is Asset Loader. That's really cool. That's a menu that works together with, for example, HardOps. So when I alt-click that, I'm going to enter HardOps menu here, which is a traditional end panel menu. When you click normally, you'll get this new HardOps menu. I prefer the old one, so I alt-click on that, and I get this old style, menu here, which I prefer. This is a really quick way of working with HardOps for me, and I really like using this menu. It's one of my favorite menus. I use it a lot. Settings menu has also some interesting stuff. For example, I can give you some more advanced tip here. And then when you create a bevel, let's say, and you create a cutter here, let's say you wanted to shift click that cutter to shift it to live. Let's just create wider normal to fix the shading. Let's say you wanted to change this cutter to solid shape. There's a really quick way of duplicating this cutter and changing it into solid shape by going to Q menu and shift clicking on shade solid. This will duplicate this mesh, this cutter, sorry. It will remove it from the cutter menu, move it to this main collection, right? So if I press shift 2, it will not disappear. You see what I mean? And it will shade it solid, which is pretty cool. So you can keep working on this. So let's say you have, this is really useful when you have like cylindrical cuts in your mesh. Let me show you. Let's say I have this mesh here and I get, something like that. And I'm gonna cut it through here using dots. So click and it's gonna go through. And then I'm going to go to ever scroll, and then I'm going to click and go to shift, click on shade solid. You see, I can create this shape in the middle here, which is pretty cool, right? So I can now go here and start playing with this, inside of this shape here. I could grab this modifier Alt-N to flip this face, Control-B to create a chamfer, and I get, this kind of a shape going on here in the middle. So it's really interesting what you can do with this tool. It's very handy for creating kind of pistons or whatever. Another important menu that I mentioned briefly, but I'm going to repeat that here. When you press D, you're going to get under this main cutter menu, right? But you also have this Shift V menu. I don't really use it that often, but it's quite useful, especially when you enable this V-Align Ortho. You're not going to be entering that menu that often because it aligns automatically in the orthographic view, but this menu is really useful. Okay, so let's say you have an element here that's at a specific angle like this, okay, and let me just combine these two here with machine tools. So this angle is really peculiar, right? So when you're going to be drawing normally a cutter here, you will be drawing along the global or local axis, but since this cube isn't rotated, because cutters will align with a local rotation, you won't be able to align to this edge here. Now what you can do is click on this line box and you can actually align yourself here, but since this edge is on a custom angle, okay, it's not at a 15, 30, 45 degrees, it's probably like 37 or something, or 47 degrees, right? So it's kind of like an odd angle, so you can't really align it that well with this line box. What you can do here is press Shift V and align it to the nearest edge, which is really cool. You need to be in perspective V for this one, and it's gonna perfectly align itself to this edge, angle, which is really useful. And if that doesn't work, switch it to longest edge, which is gonna align itself to the longest edge. So try these two options and you'll be able to align yourself to any edge on your surface without problems, which is really, really cool, right? Awesome. And of course this works at any angle. It doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter what angle you add. It's gonna always work, See, now here doesn't work. Let's just shift to nearest edge. And there you go. There you go, now it's aligning properly, you see. So when you get more cuts on your mesh, you need to be a bit more precise because sometimes it may not work, depending where you're drawing from, right? If you're drawing here, it's gonna align yourself to a different edge. So when you're drawing from here, you're good to go, okay? Cool. So that's a tool I use quite often, especially when I'm cutting some difficult surfaces. And guys, these are the major functions and options you're gonna be using in these add-ons. Probably 90% of the time. Of course, there are more advanced options and functions, but If you really want to learn HardOps and Boxcutter in depth, we have a fantastic course for it. It's called Ultimate Guide to HardOps and Boxcutter, which has been updated 3 times already. It's really robust. You have the massive theory section where we discuss all the tools and how they work. And also there's a practical section where we build a sci-fi spaceship so you can actually follow along and create something with the tools you've learned in a section number 1. So anyway guys, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.